Today, welcome to our Dine and Discuss webinar. We've made it to February 2021, and the topic for today is supporting families with concrete supports in challenging times. I really want to thank you all for being here today. And specifically, the outline for our webinar is that we're going to be going over what concrete supports are, the different types that are available for us to use, and why they're important for building strong families. So as part of this, we're going to hear some strategies about how to effectively and positively share concrete supports with families. Specifically, we have an expert from in the field, a center-based care program, and they're going to share their experiences in supporting families with concrete supports. Alrighty. So, welcome everyone. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas. Thank you for joining us today and taking time from your busy Tuesday after a long day. We really appreciate your presence. I'll introduce myself in a moment. And we're also excited to have a guest speaker and presenter, expert Nelly Rios Para. I'll introduce her a bit later on when we get to the discussion panel, okay? And I know people are still joining, so I'll move a little slower maybe. So, some friendly reminders. Number one, we want you to interact with us. That's the whole point of this, right? So feel free to interact using the chat, raising your hand to speak. You can see on the participants list, that's an option. You can press raise hand. And you can also use the emoji reaction buttons, a personal favorite, throughout the whole webinar. The chat box is a great place to share your questions, your comments, etc. throughout this session. All right, and just a heads up, we're going to start this first part of our webinar with everyone muted and microphones off so that everyone can hear the content that's going to be shared in the first part. All right, second reminder, please make sure, this is super, super important, like all reminders are important, but this one specifically, make sure your complete name is correct as it appears on Zoom for attendance purposes. So if you want this to count, this hour to count, make sure your name is spelled out correctly on your Zoom window. And number three, please turn on your camera if you can. We'd love to see your faces, especially these days that we cannot see each other in person. It's really appreciated. But we also understand and recognize this isn't an option for everyone. So you're all good if you can't. And number four, let us know when you want to share. We'd love to hear what you have to say. You can raise your hand or write in the chat box if you want to share something, and we'll invite you to turn on your microphone and share if you're comfortable. Number five, we are here to support your learning. That is fundamentally what this is about. So if you need anything, if you have any questions or need any support, feel free to write in the chat. You might see our QSLA teammates. They're here to help. So we have Tom, Alyssa, and Carter. Feel free to chat them if you need any help. And thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedules at the end of a long day to be here. Enjoy, and I hope you get something good out of this. So let's get to know who is here in our virtual room. Please take a moment and introduce yourselves in the chat box. If you can please share whatever you're comfortable with. It would be great if you can share your name, your role in organization, what city you live and or work in. So who do we have? Who do we have? Whoever would want to share, feel free. Thank you, Stacy. So, anyone else? We have some more. Okay, so we have some more. We have Claudia Ramon from Pasadena United School District Unified, Amanda from Cal Poly Pomona, Jacqueline Vasquez from Castaic, Jenny Peralta from El Monte, great. Lalita Raman, Stacy's from Pacoima, thank you. Gabriela Espinola Herrera from Long Beach, Program Director. Erika Fowler, Laura Ballard from Cerritos, great. Okay, great. Thank you all for sharing. I love to see this turnout, quite frankly. Frances Jenkins, Education Specialist. Yes, and Nelly Rios, our guest speaker from Lenox School District, Adriana Tapia from CII, Anna Salas from Silmar, Nicole Lee from Glendale, great, Janet Ortega, this is great, Eleanor Hamilton. So a lot of providers from a lot of different parts of LA County and some even in Long Beach and other parts. Thank you for sharing. So a little bit about myself. My name is Christina Espinosa. I am the Family Education Coordinator here for Child Care Alliance in LA, specifically under QSLA's department. If you've ever assisted one of these webinars before, or if you worked with QSLA, I took over for Wendeley's position. I've been here since October, so I'm still enjoying getting into this role. And in this role, I'll be working in providing these kinds of trainings and professional development opportunities, specifically around family engagement and how we can support building strong families. So that includes building a culture of strength-based family engagement. And we always have at top of mind inclusion, diversity, and equity throughout all of this work, in whatever format that might be. Lara Ikia from Harbor Hills, Yesenia Sanchez, thank you from El Monte. We have a few from El Monte, it seems. Bonnie from Long Beach, thank you all for sharing. I really appreciate that. So now that we've introduced ourselves a bit more, we have, let's see. We're going to dive in with a reflective question. This is our icebreaker of sorts. And this first question that we have, it's about asking for help, right? So a question for all of us to answer is, how do we feel when we seek help from a new resource or service? So if we're asking someone for help or a new maybe program or service in our area, maybe we're new to an area, how do we feel? And this is a question for all of us to answer. If you can please write in the chat, or if you're comfortable, you can turn on your microphone and answer now. Vulnerable, uncertain, nervous, anxious. Great responses. Whoever would like to share, maybe you can turn on your microphone. Many times it can be challenging because you do not know if the person you're asking for help will be able to help you. That's a great point, Gabriela. Jacqueline says, I feel like I can help someone else if I get what I need. That's a really good point. You're like paying it forward. Hopeful. Thank you, Nelly. Nervous, says Lalita. Uncertain. Blessed. That's a good point. Yeah, we can feel grateful too when we're asking for help. Scared. Yeah. So we have mixed emotions. Like on the one hand, like there's a lot of anticipation, maybe sometimes anxiety around asking for help. And on the other hand, like, you know, love getting informed, feeling grateful for this opportunity that there is help out there. We might be just excited, like, okay, this might work out for me and or my family. And I really want to emphasize, if we're asking for help from a person or a group that we feel comfortable and safe with, like supported by, we're more likely to feel safe and not judged by them when we're seeking help. You know, if I know this is a good space, I'm more likely to go in there with more comfort and more confidence. So let's flip this around. Let's say that we now have, on the other hand, how do we feel when we help others use a resource we are familiar with? So feel free to turn on your microphone or answer in the chat. Happy and secure. Yeah, I definitely feel like really happy when I get to help others and connect them, like, oh, this is how you use the system. Thrilled, gratified. I love your enthusiasm, Nelly. Eleanor says positive. Jacqueline says happy to help someone else in need, for sure. Anna says hopeful. Jenny says awesome. I love giving others information. I love this enthusiasm. So definitely a lot of, oh, yes, and we have someone saying resourceful, grateful to be of service. Great point. Thank you, Erika. Feeling connected. Jenny says it's her pleasure to help. I share that same sentiment. Thank you. Francis says helpful and resourceful. I'm loving these responses and I very much agree with them. I do want to share an example of a previous role I worked in. So in sharing concrete supports, I worked at it as an after-school coordinator in Santa Ana a few years back. at a middle school, so very different age group. And in that school, in that program, there was a middle school boy. His name, let's just say his name is Christian. His dad passed away, and it was a very tough time for him and his family. His mom was struggling, and because of that, their income changed a lot. And so she had to get us another job, and it changed her schedule in a way where he was no longer to attend our free after school program. We were pretty concerned, the principal and I, because we'd also noticed that Christian was feeling like, not feeling, but he was a bit more withdrawn, a bit more closed off. And so we decided to, set up a meeting and check in, see how their family is doing, just offer an ear and see, if there's a chance we could help them in any way. So once we set up that meeting, we were able to learn just how much it was affecting their lives, how their schedules were changing, like a lot of things that they were so used to, their, a lot of basic necessities and structures in their life were just changing on top of this grief of the loss of their father and husband. And so fortunately, after, connecting with them and creating this vulnerable space, the principal was able to connect the Christian's mom with some food support services in Orange County. And this was really, really helpful for their budget, and obviously just not having to worry about food as much. And from there, we were also able to connect their family with affordable grief counseling service. And this made such a big difference in how Christian and his mom were able to cope. And we saw Christian just progress bit by bit. And on top of that, thankfully through the after school program, we were able to figure out a mom who lived, find a mom who lived near Christian and his mom. And we figured out an accommodation where this mom could pick up Christian after our program so he could keep assisting. And it was just such a small little detail that made a big difference in his life, that he could have this consistency of the program, and his mom could work and not have to worry that, who's going to pick up my child? Is he going to be okay? And we were just grateful that we were able to have him in the program and see him progressing, feeling better, feeling supported, and his grades continued to stabilize and then do well. And he flourished on our dance team in the after school program. So this is just an example of how we can create these spaces. And just from all these comments that you're all sharing in our chat box, I can already imagine how great of a relationship we all have with the families we serve. And I want to say that in attending this webinar, this is how we're taking a next step with our family engagement skills, specifically during times of vulnerability. So if you're familiar with Brene Brown, a very popular social scientist and authoress, if you can't ask for help without self-judgment, you can't offer help without judging others. So what does it mean? What kind of process is what mental process are we going through when we think about asking for help, right? What do families and adults, children, what do we think of when we're pondering, I have to ask for help, right? What process goes in? If you could write in the chat if you're comfortable, and if not, it's okay. But asking for help is a result of what? Needing extended support. Thank you, Gabriela. Asking help needs courage. Definitely, Amanda. Great, you hit it on the nail. Yes. Looking for help. Yeah, not minding asking for help, being open to a different way of thinking. You're opening up your horizons. Yeah, sometimes it's a result of our commitments, maybe to our family, to ourselves. Self-awareness and knowing what you need, such a good point. Asking for help shows that you're human. That's a great point, Jacqueline. Erika says, acknowledging that I need help. That's super powerful, super, super powerful. And so asking for help can be a culmination of maybe a reflective process, right? And I really resonated with a lot of the words you shared, collaboration, courage. It can take self-awareness. And at the end of the day, it's also just a sign of perseverance as well. So asking for help is actually something very, very powerful. Thank you for sharing. So let's go over from the intangible to the tangible. Let's talk about what are concrete supports, right? And specifically, concrete supports are resources and services that address a family's needs and help to minimize the stress caused by difficult challenges and adversity. So if you're familiar with the Strengthening Families framework, concrete supports is one of the 5 protective factors that helps build strong families. And here, when we're talking about concrete, we mean tangible, usable resources and services, right? Oftentimes, you're probably already familiar with this. They're part of our local society and like government infrastructure, including like the Department of Mental Health, SNAP programs, for example, and nonprofit programs like food banks, clinics, free legal services. These are all some examples, and they can be really helpful in day-to-day situations, not just extreme situations like with this pandemic, right? Even before this pandemic. Mm-hmm. So here are some examples. It's a pretty thorough list. So here are some types of concrete supports: economic, healthcare services, quality early care and education. We also have food pantries, electronic utilities and services, transportation, mental health, special needs services, employment assistance, domestic violence, childcare subsidies, alcohol and substance abuse services, educational services, legal assistance, and housing support. So as you can see, there's a wide variety here. And I do want us to think about, and we don't necessarily have to write in the chat, but let's think about what services and or programs am I already familiar with? Maybe I already have a contact here, or I often reach out to this program. And on the other hand, what programs and or services is my agency, or maybe I'm not that familiar with this, but it would be handy to get more informed for myself or for the families I serve. Mm-hmm. And I do want to ask you all a question to respond in the chat or on the microphone if you're comfortable. Are there other services, other concrete supports that you think could be added to this list? And if we can't think of any, it's okay. Okay, feel free to unmute. Erika says that the microphones are muted if our QSLA teammates could help out. Yeah, but you can turn on your own microphone if you want to share. Mm-hmm. Childbirth, great point. Yeah, parks and recreation, definitely. Anyone else? Okay, cool. Senior services, definitely. Yes, that's not included here. Free medical services. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So as you can see, there's a wide variety of services and programs that are included in concrete supports. Delays besides special needs, yes. So other developmental situations that might come up for our children or for ourselves. Mm-hmm. Great. All right, so we're going to continue. Oh, boys and girls clubs / after school programs. I totally agree. Local law enforcement, yes. That's actually, yeah, that's definitely one that we didn't include on here, which is a little surprising. All right, thank you all for sharing your examples. So now we're going to move on. Now, when we're sharing resources in a strengths-based way, what does that mean? So a strength-based approach considers a family's reality. We're taking their perspective. And not only that, but we're assuming the best in the family, given their situations, given their background and their identities, right? And in this approach, it's always a great idea if we can take a kind and reassuring approach, use our tone in that way. And not only that, but being simultaneously proactive and reactive. And when I'm saying proactive, I mean that we're looking out and sharing resources with all of the families ahead of time before anything might happen. And then reactive in particular situations where maybe a family, for example, that the example I gave, maybe they have a loss in the family and they need an extra boost here and there to figure out some things. So from there, we also want to make sure that when we're sharing requested resources, we're not just maybe necessarily assuming what resources might be needed. We want to listen and really understand what is their situation, what details are they comfortable sharing, and we don't really want to assume, well, I think they need this, or I think this would be handy. We want to make sure that we're connecting with their goals and their intentions, right? So, and now thinking more on the physical space, it's always a great idea to offer a private environment to speak for their comfort and sense of safety. How comfortable can we feel if we're a family member coming in and maybe there's several parents around? It could be maybe a vulnerable situation, maybe it's delicate, or I don't feel comfortable talking in front of others. That's understandable. So if a private space can be made, great. If not, phone call, email, something a bit more private can be very significant, and it can change the dynamic of the conversation. What's more, going the extra mile and connecting them with the resource makes a huge difference. So let's say we're connecting a family with a specific service or program, offering to support them with a phone call or an email, being there potentially when they're making that phone call, or walking them through the dynamics of how this system works can be super valuable. And it can sometimes be the difference between whether or not they get that extra support. And if this isn't always possible, because I understand our workloads and our schedules can be, pretty long on occasion. If it's not always possible, maybe we give them the resource and afterwards we check in and we find out, oh, it's been a few weeks, how did this service work out for you? And if it didn't, maybe we can support them and figure out what roadblocks happened, what popped up, and how can we help the families overcome those barriers. Okay, and I really want to highlight this this idea that parents and families need experiences that enable them to understand that they have rights in accessing these services. They might need support in learning how to maneuver these systems and understand like the relevant knowledge of like what works for them. And in working as family and childcare programs, we can help communicate to parents this really important idea that asking for help does not make them weak, that being vulnerable is not an issue. It's a strength. You're being real with us. You're seeking support, and we're part of your team. At the end of the day, we're here to help them throughout life's ups and downs as well, like them and their children. And most importantly, when we build these positive strength-based relationships, that's when families can come to us and they feel comfortable talking to us and asking for help. Why? Because they know they can rely on us and we'll be there to support them. So now you've heard plenty from me. Let's hear from other providers. These are some words from our colleagues in the field, and I just want to highlight what they have shared. So in terms of tools, Mónica Valencia from Para los Niños Center, she's a center provider there, she shared that she's used Class Dojo to send explanations to parents. I think it's during the pandemic that she's sharing on the importance of our open communication and dialogue. Thank you, Monica. Success stories. Miriam Montiel, the owner of Montiel Family Childcare, shared that a single mom with 4 kids reached out to her, and Miriam was able to share a resource with the Red Cross that donated food, financial aid for bills, and gifts for kids in the family. She received the resource and it made a big difference in her budget in a way that she was able to save a bit, especially during this pandemic Christmas this past year. Thank you, Miriam. And in terms of collaboration, we have Elizabeth Nevares, the owner of Nevares Family Childcare. She shared that whenever she shares resources via text, email, or WhatsApp, whether it's routine phone calls, the relationship between the family she works with and with herself as a provider is stronger. And she also really enjoys or really tries to share information with families after a training, which is great because you're sharing the knowledge. Thank you, Elizabeth, for sharing. So I really appreciate that we're able to hear from our colleagues, which brings me to introduce our guest speaker, our expert. So Nelly Rios Para is a director at the State Preschool and Atlantic School District since 2001. She's going on 20 years of experience there at that particular site. And this program includes 5 licensed sites funded by California State Preschool Part Day. And she is a strong advocate for dual language learners, as well as classrooms providing dual language services in English and Spanish for all students. Ms. Rios Paras serves as the Child Care Planning Committee parent consumer, and she was the former chair. She also represents CCPC on the Quality Start LA Leadership Council. Yes. Welcome. If we can have a round of applause, a virtual round of applause, use your emojis if you want, for Nelly Rios Para. And Nelly, I invite you to turn on your camera, and there we go, and your mic. Hello.
Hi, Christina. Thank you for the opportunity to spend an evening with ladies who've worked hard and are still eager to learn some more. Like you, I took notes and still adding to my collective wisdom so I can pass it along to others.
Great. Thank you for sharing. So the way this session is going to work, now that I've introduced our guest expert, I'll ask her a few questions, and after that, she can share any final main points. And you're all welcome to ask your questions on the chat or make any comments. So this is the time to share our knowledge, all right? And our questions as well. So first question for you, what best practices do you have for connecting families with concrete supports? And which ones tend to be more successful and why?
Before even getting to that point of the resources, it's really critical to have a relationship. Many of you shared what it takes to ask for support, but also how it feels to offer the resources. So getting to know them on a name by name basis is really helpful, because then it just opens up the possibilities. But some of the key resources that are helpful come from data, come from conversations. You start listening, and based on that, you meet the need. But also, when you first enroll families into your centers, you ask them, here, like that slide we saw with here are all these resources, you ask them to circle, highlight, and let you know. And then you address each one individually. So you have their sheet, you look at it, and it's either you follow up, site supervisor follows up, a teacher follows up, so that way the parent not only receives concrete, tangible resource, but there's a conversation, so they could either ask more questions, you can guide them. And so it might be something as simple as, we don't have health insurance, where do we go? And, we have in our area, we started a partnership to help everyone. It's a community wellness center. And so we let them know that there is someone there who can schedule time to go ahead and get their child or their family enrolled in Medi-Cal services. And from there, there's other resources available. If that doesn't work for them, then we can, send them over to St. Margaret's. It's one of the Catholic charities, and the Catholic charities are available throughout the LA County, the Archdiocese. And so you can reach out to them, and they have folks that are promotores and will help connect families with either not only medical, but as well as food and other resources that they might need, including legal services, including translation services, including classes for citizenship. So it's finding out in your community what is available, and then tapping into it. And sometimes it means picking up the phone and saying, hi, my name is Nellie. I have a parent here. How can you help with this need? Sometimes it means knocking on the door and saying, hi, my name is Nellie. Can I drop off my flyers for our preschool here, so that if families come in on their own, that you can connect them with us, and then you start that partnership. So there's different ways to approach it, and I ask my staff to support this process too. Like, if they know of something that's going to benefit our families, they bring it in and we share it. So it's not one person, it's everyone working on it, because it really does take a village. And I know that African proverb sometimes gets overused, but it really does get down to at the community level. And I'm very fortunate that I've worked in my community for this many years, so that like literally I can walk down the block and wave, and they either know me by sight or by name. But it takes that kind of getting out into the community, getting to know what's there, so that then you can share that with the parents. And sometimes a lot of the resources are not in the community, because they are like some of the big names: the Department of Public Health, the Department of Social Services, the R&Rs, the resource and referrals. But it's knowing, and you don't have to know everything, but you have to know where to start, like where to call. And so I actually tell parents during our parent orientation, get your phone out. I'm going to give you some key phone numbers that are going to help you. If not this year, next year. And if they don't help you, share them with a comadre, share them with a girlfriend, share them with your neighbor. So, we list, get out the sheriff's number. Here you go, punch it in. Here's Department of Public Works, because unfortunately I live in a community where I know exactly where graffiti will be on Monday morning. But if I'm the only one calling, then that's not going to resolve the problem. But if everybody in our program and the community is calling to address these concerns, it really lifts up the whole community and helps everyone feel like, okay, I'm an agent of change. I have the power within me. And again, you remember the words we use to describe when you can ask for help. Well, sometimes you're not the one that's going to be able to ask for help or make a difference. But if you know of somebody else who can, it really does create connections that perhaps maybe you didn't think of, but somebody else did. And so we do give them, in addition to those phone numbers, we do say, have us on speed dial, call us if you need anything, and we'll go ahead and set you up. We also are in the LA County area unincorporated. So we give out the 211 number and say, call it. You can ask them for anything in any language, and they'll give you resources. You can even ask for childcare. Please don't from our program, but sometimes you might need childcare beyond our program. Call them, they'll let you know. We give them crystal stairs. We give them as many resources that they can have at their fingertip. And I do it during the orientation. I said, you can't leave until you add them to your phone. And so those are some of the ways, tangible ways, that we connect families. And I'm sure you have ways that you connect that work for you. And so I hope that you continue to share what you're doing, because it only makes our field more supportive, more resourceful, and readily able to meet the demands. Because I know during the pandemic, I started calling every director I know. What are you doing? How are you doing it? Because if I can get the information, then I can share it with parents. And in the pandemic, it was no longer, honestly, we share with everyone, our own family, our own teachers, right? How many of our teachers needed what we're talking about today? And so hopefully some of what you're hearing is resonating, or you're thinking, yes, I do that. Yes, I have a partnership with the local dental office, so if somebody has a cavity, they can go see them and they'll make time for them. So it's really keeping your eyes and ears open for opportunities. When Quality Start LA puts out a grant, jump on it, like what's available. If somebody says, we're looking for schools where we can bring our mobile van to do vision screenings, sign up. And it does take time. It does mean you might have to work till 7, but look, you're doing it already anyway. So take the time to take advantage of those partnerships, whether it's the Shriners organization that can come in and do audiological hearings to make sure children, get their hearing checked, whether it's the vision screenings where they get free glasses. So those are the resources that are out there, and it takes time. But yes, if you say this is a need in our community, you can hook parents to that need, and they'll be grateful. They'll be talking about it for years to come. They'll come back and visit you and thank you, and they'll do what you say. They'll pay it forward. They'll we call it in Spanish amadrinando. They'll help somebody else. And that's all we ask is, look, whatever you benefit, tell others about it so that they can benefit too.
Thank you so much for sharing, Nellie. I really appreciate this. And I really want to highlight a few themes I noticed in your responses. A lot of inclusion, a lot of adapting these approaches to maybe families who have different language barriers or languages, and other backgrounds maybe. And not only that, but like going the extra mile was definitely a big theme in what you shared. And we can see what a big difference that can make. And even just sometimes being that bridge and connecting families to these needs and services. So thank you. And my next question, I think you already answered it, which is great because I loved your very complete response. The next question is, how do you find out what concrete supports are important and or relevant for families in your programs? As you mentioned, orientations are a great way, and just maybe more focused surveys, etc., more conversations. Number three, I don't know if you want to give an example, a specific example. You can keep it vague so we don't use any family names, but what are some successes you have experienced with families using concrete supports? And if anyone on the group also wants to start writing in your questions, this is a great time.
So I just wanted to back up a little bit because I mentioned we do a survey. We actually do two surveys. One is at the beginning of the year upon enrollment, and then another one mid-year just to see where people are at and if they need more supports. So that way, if we missed it, we pick it up later on. Although we also post information and share it so that they know what's available and what's coming up. And we use our district website. We use, parents have reported that texting is the best, so we use that. But one of the stories I want to share, it's actually a sad story, but it's a good out. I mean, it means letting the family know that we were there for them. But one of our students, his grandmother passed away. And so what it meant is one reaching out to the family and asking, what do you need? How can we support you? And the the child's mom was really distraught, and she's a psychologist, mind you, but because it was deeply upsetting for her, the loss of her unexpected loss of her mother. We ended up saying, well, here's what's available. If you need it, use it. If you don't, let us know. And so I don't know if you guys ever received those little booklets through it's the I can picture it. I wish I had it so I can show you, but it has activities to do. It's through PBS, I believe, and it has activities and booklets to read to children to talk about letting go. So that was one piece, but the teacher also reached out to the parent on a daily basis and just checked in and said, "How are you doing? Do you want to talk? What do you need?" And so through that process, the parent, that was in November. The parent has since reported that, she was very grateful that we provided those resources, the booklet, but also the PBS links that she could use. And also that she had someone to talk to. And we did offer the counseling services that are available through the school district. And so that's just one. And I know that this is an example that's going to have to be repeated, unfortunately, during the pandemic, because there's so many people that are losing loved ones and relatives. And the child initially had a hard time um, uh, with the news. Of course, we all did, but it was his birthday the week his grandmother passed away. So the teacher, realizing this, decided to go ahead and show up, even though we're doing social distancing and all that, and virtual learning. She bought him balloons. She did a drive-by. She dropped it off with a little cupcake, and that just made him feel like loved and appreciated. So it's that kind of level of just being very um, connected. And she did this after she checked in with the mom and expressed, here's what I like to do. And so she got there from a distance, took his photo and sang to him. And the mother was beyond just touched and grateful that the teacher went out of her way. And the teacher and I were in communication during this whole time. And so that's just one example. There's other examples of where, and this is somebody who I used to teach kindergarten, but taught kindergarten back in the day, 1990s. And I had a student who now is in our program as a parent, and her child is now in kindergarten. But her mother passed away and she came to see me. She said, Miss Rios, I came to see you because you and my mom, all these years, you were there for her. Whenever she called you, you answered. Whenever she asked for something, you provided. She goes, I even come to you, and every time I've come to you, you've been there for me. And I'm coming to you again because, you know, we're having the services and I want you there because my mother would want you there too. And, you know, this is over 20 years ago. So it goes back to that relationship and being there for them. And I'm sure you have your own stories where you know that you know the resources that you share. And in this case, it was a monetary resource. She says, we need help to bear here. I was there for her. And so you do what comes natural to you, or what is being asked of you if you can. There's other stories, and I'm sure you have some too. You know, the other story I like to share is because we used to have a mobile clinic that would do eye exams, and having a parent have their child receive glasses, and the parent crying because she felt horrible that, oh my goodness, I can't believe that I never took my daughter to go get her eyes checked. I feel like a horrible mother, and she's needed glasses, you know, and just in tears, and letting her know, no, don't, you know, just be grateful that the exam was happened and, you know, took place, and that you consented. And so I think we all have moments where we realize that something that seems simple to us means the world to them. And so it's doing what you can to make sure that children's needs are met and parents' needs are met. And I know you do it in your own ways, but hopefully you're willing to share your stories so that others can learn from you too.
Thank you, Nellie. Yeah, I definitely found myself seeing a lot of the value in this like emotional connection to families, and especially supporting them through like emotional duress in those challenging times. And it brings me back to earlier in this webinar when we talked about how supporting others and helping them through it with a resource or program or whatever the case really brings like hope and joy. And I think this is one of like the great benefits of being able to work with children and families. And we also have Eleanor, hold on. Eleanor Hamilton sharing that communication is key for teachers and parents. Most definitely. It's like one of the biggest building blocks for relationship building. Thank you. That's wonderful. And if we have any other folks who would want to ask questions or share stories, this would be a great time, especially if we want to talk about maybe what challenges and lessons we have learned in connecting families to concrete supports. This is a great time. Mm-hmm.
And someone just asked
Mm-hmm.
THE to help everyone wellness clinics. They're based in Inglewood as well as other parts of LA. If you just Google them, look them up, do a search, you'll find To Help Everyone clinics. There's one on, like, and I know where they are in my community. There's even one in La Brea, off La Brea and Crenshaw, but I'm sure there's more.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Janet, for sharing. She shares, makes a difference. It makes a difference when families know we're there to support them. Definitely, definitely. And like specifically them knowing, you know, we're on their team. That's such a big component to this. Thank you, Janet. Anyone else would like to share? What are your maybe best practices, or if you've had a challenge and then how you dealt with it? Jacqueline shares, our agency organized a family wellness check. One of our staff members has experience in trauma-informed care, and she schedules one-on-one meetings with families. That's wonderful. And it's incredibly timely. In general, it's a great practice, but especially during this pandemic where we might not have as much interaction and like in the day-to-day, it's pretty powerful to set aside this time. Mm-hmm. A very creative solution. Thank you, Jacqueline, for sharing. And Jacqueline says that they have gotten closer to family. So it's pretty special to see what comes forward from these efforts. Anyone else would like to share? Mm-hmm. And another question to consider, play dates virtually as well. Jacqueline shares, yes. We can get very creative, you know. Zoom and other video calls can still make things fun. Yes, thank you for sharing, Jacqueline. I appreciate everyone sharing their expertise. It's super valuable. And another question for everyone to consider, what are your best tips for communicating information about resources to families in your program? So how do we communicate resources? How do we share? And feel free to turn on your microphone. You don't have to show your face, whatever you're comfortable with.
I can share again. It's Jacqueline again, if you
Go ahead.
don't.
Yeah.
So we organized our family wellness plan, and with our staff member that has the trauma informed care experience, she also puts together a packet of resources for families. We also use the curriculum Frog Street that has the conscious discipline component. So, based off of the conscious discipline framework, she compiles activities that can be done at home to hit different criteria, social emotionally. So, self regulation and that kind of thing. And then she has a family activity that they can do, whether it's a recipe with a book to read, or a board game, or a science activity. And then that's what our play dates are based on as well. So we organize the play dates based on those alone activities, and then the family gets the entire packet of materials and for the lessons, and then this wellness packet as well with the activities. And then the last 4 pages are all resources that are available to families based on the information we get from you guys from Quality Start, and anything in the community, the local libraries, the food pantry, all of that. So every family gets this packet of resources, materials, and goodies for the students every month.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Jacqueline. I really appreciate it. And it's actually pretty encouraging also to hear that your center is putting together these packets and getting it out there and getting creative and how we can adapt, and also incorporating play at the same time, and it just hits a lot of bases in a very concrete and like adaptable way. And some other responses on our chat. When we sharing information through group text seems to work. Emails, virtually, a email using the Remind app, I've heard that's pretty popular. Website posts for those centers that have them. Sandbox and Remind is also a great option. Communicating and distributing supplies every week, and children or family can do them together and learn in all areas. Really creative. Thank you, Claudia, for sharing. Silvia Guzman shares posting in monthly newsletters. Great. And Frances Jenkins shares conscious discipline for teachers to support interactions with parents and children. Definitely have been hearing a lot of conscious discipline, that program. And Jacqueline, do you mind sharing one more time? What was that program? Frog Tree? I couldn't quite, you can write it. Mm-hmm.
So the curriculum is Frog Street, but conscious discipline is a framework that is incorporated into Frog Street. So Dr. Becky Bailey co-wrote the curriculum to be able to incorporate it. I know Alyssa is very familiar with it. We've had some conversations about it, and it's really awesome because it's based on brain research, and it's all about self-regulation and teaching children at a very young age how to find those intrinsic rewards. And it's really the foundation for academic success.
Yeah, definitely. And especially in this day and age where children are developing their self-esteem in different ways. Thank you.
I wanted to extend what you just shared, Christina and Jackie, because the whole notion of self-esteem, there's a Center for Social Emotional Foundations of Early Learning. That's been a wonderful resource, not just for parents and families, but for staff as well. And it does provide lots of visuals that you can use with children in terms of turn taking, in terms of, waiting, in terms of asking for help. And what's nice is you can Xerox and send the visuals home so that the parents can use them as well for self-regulation or just to problem solve. And it's got tons of books that address different needs and articles to go. And then there's videos to watch. And I've used it for both parents and families. and staff, because it really covers the gamut, whether it's a biter, whether at the center, at home, or whether it's, just feeling sad or not, processing emotions, or I'm a big brother, I'm a little sister, those different realities. So Center for Social Emotional Foundations of Early Learning, also known as the Pyramid. So check that out.
Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it, Jacqueline and Nellie. And all our experts on the chat as well, Jenny, Ana Salas, Eleanor, Janet as well. This is all great to hear, quite frankly. And
can I give a plug for, because I get these once a month emails from Alyssa Fox and Quality Starts LA. And when I get those, I don't have the time sometimes to look through all of it, but they're chunked in, grouped by areas. So it's for provider, it's for parent, it's for development, different areas. And so sometimes when I don't have the time to go through all of it, I'll say to a peer, hey, can you look at that, see what's useful? But sharing that, and the book of the week or month, and check that out if you haven't. And if you don't have the time, just trust me, just use it. It'll be worth your while. It's very well done.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate the shout out. I know Alyssa and our team work really hard on all these resources. Great. Any last questions, comments? Anyone want to share other examples of their best practices for sharing concrete supports?
There's another go-to I'd like to share, because I call it the wheel, but I tie it to the Center for Disease Control. It has the milestones, and the milestones are now available on an app. You can have the parents download it, and it's really helpful for those parents that want to push their kids hard, like to say, no, don't worry, they're developing. And then for the parents who are not aware that, yes, they could do other things to help. And so it's through the Center's disease control. It's called Developmental Milestones. You can get the app. But I found a wheel. I call it the wheel, and it's through I forget the organization in Long Beach. And the wheel works where you have the developmental ages. You have the ages chronologically, and it tells you, I can do this, you can do this as a parent. And that one has helped me convey to parents, here are some activities you can do at home, and it covers all the developmental, domains. So I wish I had it so I can show you. And those are free. You can secure hundreds of them, and give them individually to each family. Usually I meet with parents and explain how it works, and have them check off what they're already doing or their child's doing, and then focus on what they want to do with their kids. So I like to share that one a lot. And even now teachers come and say, can I have the wheel? I need it for a parent. So once the word gets out, others come and ask for it too. So I hope you can find that useful.
Thank you, Nellie. Yes, and just as we can connect them with, external concrete supports, we have these more internal concrete supports that can help their social emotional development. I really appreciate it. Okay, and as you might have seen, folks, Alyssa shared 2 links from the CDC, so you can check out that app for the milestones, or maybe even the circle potentially. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to move forward. So we have any questions? Yes, any questions? Come off the mic if you want, write in the chat if you feel comfortable. And just as a reminder, go ahead and keep writing your questions if you have any. As a reminder, you'll be receiving an evaluation soon, and I believe one of our teammates, our QSLA teammates, will be sharing the evaluation link right now. Thank you, Nellie, for sharing that wonderful resource. But we'll also be sharing the evaluation form. Just a reminder, once you fill out the evaluation, that's when you'll get credit for this webinar right now. Yes. So you should be receiving it right now in the chat, and also in the next day or 2 in your email. And guess what? We're not done yet. Guess what? This is my Oprah moment, guys. Resources for everyone. Yes. So not only do you have this webinar, but when you go back to the QSLA Connect platform, guess what we have? We have some great infographics for you to take away. So This one on the left, the concrete support infographic, is a hub, like an infographic with information on food, housing, employment and legal assistance, transportation, mental and physical health, domestic violence support, and other support hubs, including 211LA and First 5LA's resource list. So if you go on I'll show you where it is right now, but if you use this infographic, all those links are clickable, they all work, and there's phone numbers on there. And most of the descriptions share, what languages it's offered in and maybe some requirements. So it's really, really handy. It's all in one space, and this is ready to go. So you can share this with families. You can do printouts if you want them to use the website. So you can share it via text or email, whatever works. So I just really want to encourage us to check those out. And this resource on your right, on my right as well, the communication methods. It's a quick guide. So we heard a lot of different ideas here, and considering, some of our approach is going to be in person, some of our approach is going to be digital, and this gives us examples of how we can take this, how we can make this happen. So maybe our program is, staffed with 1 or 2 people. We might not have the capacity for, or the time and energy and, funding for websites or hosting different programs. So we might do a different approach. And I just want to encourage you to check out this guide. It just gives a lot of ideas for how to share resources in person and digitally with our families. So where can we find these awesome resources? Yes, and now that we've launched QSLA Connect, you can see once you finish this webinar, you will go to the resources tab. It's the tab on the right. And there's, I believe, this PowerPoint should be there, as well as the infographic I shared, those 2 infographics I shared, and maybe one other document with more background research on concrete support. Thank you, Janet, for your comment. I'm really happy that you love QSLA Connect. We are really excited to have it launching. Our team has been working very, very hard. So I'm really glad, Jenny, that you appreciate this information. Any other comments, concerns, ideas? Good. Cool. All right, I think we're set with that. I bid you adieu, and thank you everyone for participating and taking time out of your day to show up. So a round of applause for all of y'all for showing up today. We really appreciate your dedication and your time. So have a wonderful night and a great week.